Hello, good afternoon. Here we are in Lleida. This is Animac 25th special anniversary edition of the showcase of animated film of Catalonia. Here we have today our awarded this year with the honorary award, Joanna Quinn. Hola, Joanna. Hi.
Hola, ¿qué tal?
Well, ¿qué tal? We're okay. We're actually fine. We are actually quite happy that we thought all this online thing will be very cold, but it's not. We're getting a lot of warmth from filmmakers, from the audience, also live, because right now some films are being shown in our big theater and everything. Kids are watching films now, and short film competition, everything. It's happening also live here with all the precautions, necessary precautions, with no international guests, unfortunately. But here we are, we are so pleased and happy. Last night we had to give you this award by video in our main auditorium. Yeah. And we show it on video, but it went down really well. We screen in big screen Wolf Walkers. Here it is. The Animac Honorary Award. Great. Well, thank you very much for the masterclass that you gave us and showing us all your creative process, all your work, which is amazing. Beryl, as you mentioned, was born in Girl Night Out, Body Beautiful, and later on in Dreams and Desires, Family Ties, and lately in A Fest of the Art, which is your latest short, 10 years on the making. Les is also an important part of it as a producer, a script writer. You won a very important award, right? Just a few days ago in Clermont-Ferrand. Congratulations for that, for the best animated film in the main festival for short films in the world. So in A Fest of the Art, well, all of you, please do your questions. Podéis hacer las preguntas en castellano, en catalán, en inglés. We can do questions in any language you want. We will translate to Joanna. You have another channel with someone that is translating everything that Joanna is saying in English. He's translating in Catalonian or Spanish? Spanish. In Spanish. Gracias, Mariam. Thank you, Mariam, our translator. So you talk about, Joanna, you talk about in A Fest of the Art already in Dreams and Desires, but you talk about obsessions, What your obsessions are as an artist, Joanna Quinn?
My obsessions, I think I'm obsessed with drawing, as you can tell from the masterclass. I just love drawing, and that is my favorite activity. I am a typical animator. I love being alone. I love just drawing in my own environment, being quiet and getting lost in the lines. So I suppose that is my obsession.
You work with Les, which is partner, producer, script writer. And for how long have you had this creative collaboration?
Well, ever since, ever since I was a student. So Les worked on Girls' Night Out. So all that time we've been a team. So how many years is that? I don't like to say because it's so many years, but about at least 30. But we work together on every single film I've made. We work together as a team. So yes, that long.
Wow. Fantastic. Well, congratulations to Les as well. We already have here one question, which is rather a remark from Maria Manero Muro, which is a great animator herself, and says, adore your masterclass, Joanna Quinn. You deserve all the awards. Congratulations. That's what...
Very kind. Gracias. Thank you.
Okay. You said, many years ago. Well, I was around many years ago, and when I saw your student film, Gail's Night Out, I probably saw it a little later, so more of when I started to go around in festivals, they were your early films, not as Girls Night Out, but Body Beautiful probably came out when I started to go around festivals. And were you aware after the success 3 awards in Annecy of Girls Night Out and with your later works that you were setting up an example to give a voice to women in animation, because you were talking about issues that probably no one else had tackled before, Were you aware of that?
I was aware of that, yes. I wasn't aware of that at the beginning because I was just making films. Like when I made Girls Night Out, I just made a film. It was all, I just did it. I didn't really question it because I had no experience of other animated films. So I just made this film that I thought was interesting. But when I went to Annecy and I saw all of the other films, I did think at that point that a feminist voice was missing from the majority of the films. Most of the films, there were films made by women, but there were very few films with strong female characters. There were women in the films, but they tended to be sexualized or like mother-in-law jokes, an older woman who's like, meh. So I thought, actually, maybe my films say something new. And then I realized that actually, as a young woman who was a feminist, I had a responsibility from that point on to make films that really spoke for women. And so I did understand that I needed to do that, and that my voice, I thought everybody thought like me, but then I realized actually, no, not everybody does. But the irony is that all the scripts are written by Les, who's a man, but he's obviously a feminist, of course. So yes, it's just a feminist way of thinking, whether you're a man or a woman. It's just identifying that women have a voice, and have something to say. And of course, with Beryl, she's a fantastic character, and we can, because I think she's sort of middle-aged, she's a mother, people make assumptions about women of a certain age who look a certain way. And so you can take that character then and surprise the audience by making her do wonderful things, and so and also wanting to make statements and political statements, I suppose, feminist statements, but with humor. And humor is wonderful to be able to get ideas across because your audience come with you. You're not preaching, you're including them and making them laugh, and so they don't feel like they're being told off. So, and of course, that's what I'm not doing. I'm just introducing them to nice female characters.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, it was very revealing, I must say, to when I discovered your work when I was at the school in England. And then I saw in those VHS, that's Jurassic Time, those VHSs that the BFI was like producing, discover your work. To me, it blew my mind, and then go around in festivals and see it. And definitely, I think animation, because, well, here we are after 25 years, and we follow the career of many animators like you. And one thing out of this list that some of the experts in animation have made about the best features and the top authors, where you are, in those top 5 like artists, we see that in feature films there's no females directing, very very few. Anka Damian and Signe Baumane, Marianne Satrapi, and a couple in Hollywood, but very few women are directing films. But then if you go to the short films, you find more women. Do you think that the short format allowed more of the possibility for women to create and to have a voice? And why do you think is that so, that in women you find more equality?
Well, all I can really talk about is my experience, and I suppose my world is short films, and I have no desire to make a big feature film, um, probably because I enjoy the process of animation so much, and that I hate it when I have to compromise on the artwork and have such a large team that it becomes quite difficult to keep hold of your signature in the artwork. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and about how I really, really enjoy the process of animation, and it makes me very happy. And especially with the pandemic and everything, I think everybody's sort of rethinking their ideas about life, and I think it's very important that you enjoy what you do, and I really enjoy doing that. I have had a few possible, people asking me if I'd be interested to do a feature film, but when I've looked at the setup, I've just thought I'm not that comfortable with going into that. When I compare it with what I've got, and I'm very, very happy doing short films. Combining short films with teaching is perfect. I love that. That's me. The thought of directing a massive feature film with a huge team doesn't excite me terribly. I like the idea of getting, like Beryl, for instance, to a bigger audience. That would be fantastic. That would be great. But I do know from, watching there have been some quite interesting talks, some online talks about the glass ceiling in animation for women recently at different festivals. And quite a lot of surveys about how many women work in animation, and how at the moment there's more women working in animation than ever, and it's all fantastic. But then when you break it down and look at the jobs that they actually do, they're not the powerful jobs at the top. There are a lot more women now. I noticed it in America, in the big studios, there are a lot more women getting the big jobs. But I think generally it's still a very male area, the feature film world. But I can't really speak about it because it's not my area. But that's just an observation from where I'm and of course, because I'm in Britain, it's very different than like in America. Everything's about features, and in Spain, a lot of feature films being made in Spain. But in Britain, it's not so much. We've got a tradition of short films, filmmaking, and so it feels natural to do short films for me anyway.
And also half-hour specials, a lot of tradition on that, which you made a beautiful one, Famous Fred. Well, for us, I must say that in Animac, I like to talk about films, no matter the duration, because this is only a commercial thing, the duration of a film. And we, of course, we love filmmakers like yourself that have this very personal approach, to filmmaking, to animation, and this is the kind of animation we promote and we love here in Animac. It's of course, in the short format, you keep all this control over the creative process much more probably that in a feature film. We have a question from Mireia that says, what similarities there are between your Beryl character and its story or her character with you? I mean, the connections between the character and the artist. Is there anything at all based on actually yourself? I mean, you mentioned your mom and the lady at the refectory of Middlesex, but is there a bit of Joanna? That's what Mireia asked in Beryl.
Yes, obviously, I think it's me. Yes, she is me. And I think the older I become, the more I'm starting to look like her. But,
no.
No. If this lockdown carries on for much longer, I definitely will look just like Beryl. But I think, yes, I think she's very much, she acts like me in as much as, well, obviously I use the mirror all the time when I'm doing her, when I'm animating her and doing her lip sync and animating her. I'm looking in the mirror and I'm drawing myself, so it must be me. But I also I love I love doing Beryl, I think, because you're having to animate what's in her mind, you know. And I suppose there's all those sort of like self-doubt, which I am full of, you know. So there's all that sort of shouldn't I? And I suppose that's definitely me. And then going, yes, I'll do it, you know. So I think that's my character: self-doubt, sod it, I'll try. Yes,
Well,
definitely.
thank you. Thank you. Mireya has another question that says, what are your main references? Definitely, you come from a fine art background, and thank you very much for sharing this dance film I had never seen, I must say. It's almost like an anatomical study. So, I mean, I can see those references very much from the classic life model life lessons, but I'm sure you have another reference in the art world and maybe some others.
Well, I suppose I do. I do have a foot in two camps, you know. I do love traditional life drawing and drawing the anatomy. And so I'm very obsessed with that, actually, and the body, drawing the body, and I try to keep that up. So I'm doing online life drawing classes now. I was doing it with my left hand when my right hand was broken.
Oh, wow.
And Les cruelly said my drawings were better than normal. So that was very mean, but it was actually true. So I do love life drawing. And I think when I was at college, I was battling because I had this side of me that wanted to do comedy, that loved to make people laugh. And then the other side of me that loves drawing and analyzing. And because I used to love biology at school, I nearly did biology. So I really love, you know, my drawings in my biology book, you know, of the all of the veins and the muscles and everything. So I think I am obsessed with the body. And I couldn't work out when I was at college how to join the two, you know, because I thought animation had to be funny and jokey and cartoony. But then I did that little dancer because I wanted to explore the body and make it move. But I didn't think it was a proper film. You couldn't make a proper film out of it. And so I think my whole career has been trying to join the two and bring my knowledge of the anatomy together with my humor. And that is why I enjoyed making Elle so much, the film that I just showed in the Toulouse-Lautrec, because that was just all about enjoying drawing the body and just with pencil, no other things to worry about, just the enjoyment of drawing the body, and that was lovely. But yeah, I mean, I did graphic design when I was at college, and so I love typography. So that was another area that I went into, doing typography. And when I left college, I did a lot of letterheads for people, and did a lot of sort of illustration work, not fine art, actually. I wasn't from a fine art background at all. All my references were very tight typography, illustration. It was all very, very tight. Comic strips, tight. And so working with Les actually was very important to my art, because Les is from a fine art background, and so his mind is very open and experimental, so he will try things and not worry, whereas I am quite conservative and do worry, you know, and think, oh, I can't do that because it's wrong. You know, you can't have it that way. That's just, and Les is saying, why not? Of course you can. And so I think that's one of the reasons that we work very well together, because he is from a fine art background and I'm from a more graphics background. And I think it works. Yeah, we work well together in that way.
Well, it's great to find a partner that encourages you to go ahead and to jump into unknown, into the unknown. Actually, the next question is a bit about that. It says, congrats, Joanna. It's always a pleasure to learn more about your art. You're such an inspiration. My question would be, is there anything you haven't done yet and that you are curious about?
I've always had an ambition and always wanted to do sculpture. I always had this idea that I would get to a certain age and give up animation and do beautiful sculptures of the human form. And so every now and again, I buy a lump of clay and go, this is it. And then I never get around to it and the clay goes dry. So in my mind, I think I'm a fantastic sculptor that I just haven't ever done it yet. But that I imagine that'll be my next life. I'll be this wonderful sculptor who can make beautiful, beautiful sculptures.
Well, I am sure, because your drawings have a lot of volume, even though they are 2D, they have a great volume. So yeah, go for it. And maybe, who knows, maybe you end up doing stop motion animation. Who knows?
Maybe. Too hard. No.
Too hard. Well, also this year being the 25th edition, we thought about a lot of what's been happening over those 25 years. And one of the things is that many artists, as yourself, started with a more analogical tools that in your case you keep, because there is a decision to have this texture, to have your hands, your trazo, no? I don't know the word now in English, your trail. But yes, in your work in this late Affairs of the Art, you've used, I believe for the first time in the picture, we are not talking about editing and so on, that I'm sure you've done digitally before, but in the picture you've used digital paint. How it's been the change from analogical to partly digital?
It is quite difficult, I have to say, because it is such a different process using digital animation software. I did spend 6 months actually animating using TV Paint on the film. And so I animated quite a section of, not an awful lot, but my animation, the way you animate is so different that I couldn't really come to terms with it. I think as well, TV Paint, the actual animation, using it for animation is fantastic if you're just trying to do animation, if you're just animating. But I was trying to do animating and artworking at the same time. And of course, trying to choose the right brushes and everything. You have to make too many decisions and press too many buttons. Whereas when you're animating on paper, on a light box, you just have one pencil. It's more intuitive for me because you don't have to make decisions. And so you can just go with the flow and just feel comfortable drawing, and you don't have to go out of that zone. You're using your right hand side of the brain just in an animated world. And I found with TV Paint, I was going, I got to change the brush, I got to do it. You're making decisions all the time, and so I stopped. Mm-hmm. It stopped the flow. Now with the color, so what we ended up doing, I ended up stopping animating and thinking, this is my animation is compromised. I'm going to go back to the light box. Even though I thought I wanted to make a film that was completely digital, that I could say it's digital and everybody will be shocked and say, I thought you'd done it by hand. That's amazing. I wanted to invent. I wanted to shock everybody at how I had mastered digital animation and made it look hand, but I couldn't. I failed. So I went back to my light box. But we decided to do the color because the color is something that was easier to control once it was in there. And of course, it's just wonderful, being able to change the colors when it's all in there. You can change the colors and do that. And but we did have it was hard to stop it from going flat, even though it was all done by hand. It was still hard to keep the textures. Just the technical thing of putting texture in digital work is quite laborious, so we had to use lots of different ways of involving texture to make it look organic and hand done. But that's what we ended up doing, scanning in the drawings on paper, doing the color in TV Paint, and then compositing it all finally in After Effects.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. We see actually the light box there in the back of your studio. Is that the actual light box that you use?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Great.
actually, I do have quite a few light boxes. Wherever I go, I have light boxes because of course
Okay.
our studio is shut at the moment, and everything is quite terribly messy. I'm sorry because we were in lockdown. We are in
Yeah.
lockdown, so everything is in here. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, thank you very much. We have a question from Eudal Rojas. He says, amazing masterclass, thanks. Do you usually animate straight ahead or pose to pose? That's the question.
Okay. Always pose to pose, very, very much so. Yes, I can't do it straight ahead. That was my problem with TV Paint, because I felt, and I know this from teaching as well, a lot of the students, it's easy to go straight ahead when you're doing digital animation. And I think it creates a lot of problems, I think, because traditional animation, when you're drawing on paper and using an old-fashioned dope sheet, it's good to punctuate your animation as you're going along. And so I do the action before I animate. I identify the key moments, any change in direction, and I will sketch those movements, and those will become my key drawings. So I'll go from there to there to there, and then I'll time it and say, that took 1 second, that took another second. And you know how many drawings to do in between. But for me, it's crucial to go from key to key, because it gives your animation a rhythm, and it pinpoints it, and it punctuates the movement in a very clear way. And so you can work quite a lot on your key drawings, and then the in-betweens are just movements, so they can be quite quick. So yes, definitely I'm a champion of, or rather I champion doing key to key to key.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I don't know if we have time for one more question. So please, people that are following us, you have time if you want to make this last question. Otherwise, I'll just ask Joanna that you mentioned before that you are also a teacher, and what your advice would be for students and for future professionals in animation that, as yourself, want to pursue a career as independent or as an author, wants to go through with their own ideas, style, and way of seeing things.
I suppose the only advice I would give is to be passionate about what you do, and to just work incredibly hard to do what you want to do. You know, if there are animators or companies that you really admire, ask them if you can do work experience with them. You know, learn from them. Go, you know, show your interest and your enthusiasm and excitement. As somebody who has got a studio, and we have people coming to, you know, we have students who come and do work experience and things. The students that stand out are the ones that are passionate, and they're not always the ones who are best at animation. They're the ones who you just feel they're good in a team. They're easy to work with. They're excited. They want to roll up their sleeves and do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and just learn, and are hungry. And so I think that's something that I look for in students, you know, for when they leave, when they're graduates. You're looking for somebody with something special, you know, a passion. Is somebody who's passionate. And I think with online stuff now, I think it's just important to get your work. Everybody can see it, you know, just get your work shared, and show yourself to be extremely, what's the word? Passionate, and people will want to work with you. How you make money, that's a whole other area, is about money and how you actually earn money from animation. I mean, I have managed to spend all my life making a living from animation from leaving college, but there was a time when I wasn't, and so I was just doing other work, and doing illustration work and typography and other things, and working in factories, working to earn money, but in my mind thinking, I've got this great idea for a film, and I'm going to make that. Also, like, maybe thinking like actors think. You meet actors who, they say, I'm an actor, but they're working in a bookshop or they're working in a supermarket, but they're still an actor. They're still, that is their dream to, get those jobs. And so I think maybe, in this day and age, you are an animator, you're going to make this wonderful film, or you're going to work at that wonderful studio, but it isn't quite ready yet. But so I'm just going to do a little bit of work here to earn some money, but that's my ambition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and actually, one of the questions, sorry, I forgot to ask you very quickly. It's about the commercials, because you mentioned, and we know for over 10 years you've been doing commercials, a very, very beautiful, fantastic commercials. Did you learn something from the commercial world to put it into your personal work, and vice versa? I mean, vice versa is quite obvious that the brands are calling you because of your personal strong style. But did you learn something from commercials back into your personal work?
Yes, I learned an awful lot from doing commercials. I learned how to direct and how to direct a team, which is invaluable, actually. Being able to try and get the best out of people. Because, working with a team is under a lot of pressure, is quite hard. And animators tend to have very fragile egos. And so, well, we all do. You're creating a piece of art and you're showing it. And if it's not good enough, it can be quite crushing. And so learning how to direct, to look at a piece of work and try and work with the artist to make it better, that's a skill that I learned from doing the adverts. Scheduling, because you cannot be late. The schedule, most of our schedules, I think they're about 12 weeks or 8 to 12 weeks for a half a minute. Oof. For 30 seconds.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And you had to stick to it. So you had to stick to all of the schedules going through, and you couldn't go backwards. You just had to go forwards. And so that was a big learning curve. Not that I implemented that on the last film. It took like
10 years.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, but it's a personal film. Okay. We have. It's a comment. It's not a question. It's a comment. Thank you for this masterclass. Great to hear Joanna talk about animation. And just the last question, since it's not a question, I'll just do it. You were mentioning 10 years on the making of Affairs of the Art. Will we have to wait 10 more years for your next film, or you have already something in mind that you think that you are already, or you can start already making?
Not a film, but as soon as my arm is a little bit better, I'm just going to start animating. And so Les and I at the moment are talking about ideas. But I think whatever happens, it's going to be 30 seconds long with no backgrounds, hardly any color. The opposite of what we've been doing, just so that it can be like an advert, 8 weeks. Done. Not spending 10 years on another film again, never.
Okay, we'll be waiting for those 30 seconds to put it together. No, we can give you 1 year.
Okay, all right. TikTok.
Next year in Animac, along with Affairs of the Art.
There's a challenge.
That's a challenge. Okay. Along with Affairs of the Art, the next year we want to screen it in our beautiful auditorium, big screen, and we hope you are here next year with us to sit next to you and see together your fabulous film. new
Well, then
film.
my challenge will be not only to make a 30-second little TV film, but also to learn Catalan. So
That's right. That's
there we
right.
are. There we are. Two
First
challenges.
word. First word. Thank you very much. And adeu, which is
Adeo.
goodbye. Adeu. Adeu is
Adeo. Adeo.
adeu. So thank you
So,
very much. I think we are. It's about the time.
okie dokes.
To finish this conversation, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much for the awesome masterclass that you edited with your arming plaster, with your bad arm. So twice thankful for that. And here we carry on with our Animac from Lleida and also in the cyberspace. Thank you very much, Joanna. See you here in Lleida next year. Adeu.
Okay. Adeo. Thank you.
Thank you. Gracias. Ciao.